moved down right across the border in Blaine, Washington, bought a house, and then wasn't doing much. And I went back to school because when I first graduated, I didn't know I wanted to teach until I was about to graduate, right? I tried
Right.
business, I didn't really like that. And then I was like, you know what? I think I want to teach. And so this was my senior year. So
And
my
and your
advisor
dad
said,
taught, right?
yes, yes.
Right.
And so my advisor said, you know what? Just come back and then get your teaching certificate that way. So of course I didn't do that because I was playing ball and doing other things. But when I was ready to start teaching, I found Western Governors University who could give you a master's and a teaching certificate at the same time. So I did that. And then so I'm about 48, 49 when I graduate. 48. And my father told me, he said, hey, no matter what you do, you starting late, so make sure you put into your pension plan, over put in there. And I'll tell you why that's important later. And so my father had just passed away at this point too.
Oh,
And yeah, no, he knew I was getting ready to graduate, but we never got to talk about
oh,
me actually being a teacher. So
yeah. I only
uh
met him a couple of times, but really, really liked.
yeah. And so I'm driving, I got my, feel because he said once you graduate, drive as far as you're willing to drive to go to work, drop off
Exit
packets, and then,
152 on the
so
right.
that's what I was doing. So I'm about 6 hours in, and I'm driving by I'm getting ready to pass the Lummi Nation exit, and that's the Native Reserve, right? And
Right.
I was like, I think it's a school out there, but at this point I'm tired. And then it was like he was in the car with me because I heard his voice say, boy, don't be lazy. It could be a job out there for you. So I was like, okay. So I got on the exit, met the principal. She said, yeah, we could use her as a sub. 2 weeks later, I was working, and then 2 weeks after that, she said, "Come every day. We'll find something for you to do."
Oh,
And
cool.
so, yeah, and so um, at the end of that year, she hired me as a what was that? I think I jumped back in because my counselor at the time when I graduated said, "Hey, man, you're a history teacher. It's a million of them." And I was working with mentally challenged adults in a group home. So I'm like, okay. So I jumped back in, start working on a master's in special education. And so that's what they hired me for as a special education teacher. And it
In
did
this
that,
district.
yeah, and on this Lummi Indian reservation. And so
Okay.
did that. I was happy with that. I had a co-teacher, and we, we had a bunch of young, energetic young men, and so it was perfect. Uh, the carrot was you had 3 classes in the morning, and then you had two and two or something like that. But anyway, at the end of the day, at the end of the right before lunch, we had free time so we could go to the gym, and that was the carrot for them to do their work up until that point. And then
Got it.
at the end of the day, we had more free time, so they afternoon classes, you got to do your work. We can go to the gym, and so I was happy doing that. And and then the print and at but while working with this gentleman, he he had some challenges, and so um I talked to my wife and I said, you know what, I think I might want to be an administrator one day. So I jumped back into school to do that, and before I could graduate, the principal asked me because she knew I was in school to be a administrator. So she said,
Yeah.
how they just fired the vice principal. So they said, how would you like to be the dean of students? I'm like, okay, that's perfect. That's what I'm going to school for." And so finished school. She gave me the job. And so basically, this is the weird part. I only taught for 2.5 years, and I've been an administrator for this is my I think let me see 4 years as a V. No, three. So this is like my fourth year, 10th year as an administrator, and I only taught 2 years.
Oh my
So
goodness. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah. So
Oh,
that was
they must love you. They must love you.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, can you tell me a little bit more about the district?
Well, it's a one school district. It we house about 400 students, K through
Wow.
12. So that's a little unique, being a elementary principal, a middle school principal, and a high school principal
I
all in the same
bet.
in the building. Yeah. So uh, I I personally like working with older students because I
Yeah.
feel I can reach them. Um, because when I came to Crossroads, I wasn't the best student, right? And
Well,
so
you
I
had other
always,
things on your mind.
yeah, exactly. And so I always thought back to those days and how you guys kind of, you guys made learning just fun. Like
Mm.
you asked our opinions, and I don't know if you based the curriculum around that, but there was a lot of interactive, right? And so when I became a teacher, uh, I decided that that was a good way for me to be, and so and then I carried that through my being as administrator as well, right? There's times that I have, because it's a high poverty area, and I have a charity, and so we
Mhm.
fundraise every year. And there's times where I've had to, fill up a fridge of food and just things like that. But I mean, if you're going to be in the community, you need to give back like that, right? I remember
Right, right.
I was one time when I was a vice principal, I had a great relationship with this young man. And this one day, usually he would come to my office. All right, Villas, I had a little, I'm ready to go back to class now. Well, this time he comes in there, he doesn't calm down. And so I say, stupidly, hey, man, if you can't calm down, I'm going to have to send you home. So he said, okay, I'm going home. So I had my truancy officer take him home. Truancy officer comes back and says, hey, man, you know that he's not eating because they don't have enough food and they waiting on grandma's check. And so he's making sure his little brothers and sisters eating. So that's why he's so irritable. And I felt like a jerk. So
Well, you
we
didn't
went.
know. You didn't
I
know.
know I
Yeah.
didn't. I know I didn't. But that was like kind of the first time where I was like, okay, let me use my charity for this. And so
Yeah.
me and the truancy officer went shopping, and we filled up grandma's fridge, and so it's just
Oh,
I've been kind of acting like that as an administrator, as well as when I was teaching as well. So
that, a couple days he's not coming to school. And I knew that he wasn't sick. I don't know how I knew it, but I knew it. And so I asked the class that I was teaching, it was a social studies class. I said, why don't we all get in the van? We'll go over to his house. And we went over to his house, North City. He opens the door, he's in his skivvies, and he was totally blown out of his mind. But brought the class into his living room, and we had class there. And
awesome.
I wish I could tell you that after that he never missed school again, but he did.
And then last year I had to teach. I taught health and PE until we found somebody to do that, as
Oh my
well as
God.
being the vice principal and principal. And so, yeah, yeah, it was kind of tough. Those 2 years
Wow.
were kind of tough.
So how close do you live to the school?
35 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's on an island, right? The school?
No, it's not actually. There is Lummi Island, but we're actually on the Lummi Reservation.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, I drive right by the ferry dock every morning to come to school.
You reflect back on Crossroads days, were they helpful? Were they forgettable?
No, no, they were extremely helpful. And I tell you why, because I mean, I remember when I was at Waring, right? And it was like school was kind of boring. And so, if school is boring, then you're not gonna do your best. And so my grades would be like C, C minus D, and then by the end of the year, I would have mostly C's and a couple of B's, right? Then I come to Crossroads, same thing, a little bit better, right? But then
Yeah.
my father said, "Hey, man, you can't be getting those C's. You can get C's. You can get C's at the public school."
Right.
And
Right.
so, and so after he said that, then eighth grade rolls around, and then something, it just kind of clicked, right? You guys had the right classes for me at the right time. Like I will always remember, like that political science class. I don't know if that was the name of it or not, but
Yeah, something
I
like
know
that.
we
Yeah.
were we were following the election and everything, and it just, we're in classroom talking about the stuff, and then the next day we're talking to Chip Carter or going to talk to William Clay or doing polling in Clayton. I didn't remember that until my mother told me. She said we would do. She had an. I don't, she couldn't find the article, but she remembered reading about our polling numbers were either at par with the professionals or a little better every time we went polling.
Well,
Yeah.
it looks like you've got other things going on, or
Oh no, I got employees for that, so I got all the time I want.
okay, okay.
Uh,
Um, so after Crossroads, you went to Soldan, right?
yeah, went to Soldan. And at that time, like it was. Oh, see, my father knew me like a book, so he was like, "This is what he says when I enter the ninth grade." He says, "Oh yeah, you got them grades over at Crossroads last year, but you know that's not gonna happen over here at the real school. You
Yeah,
know, this is real high school, and yeah, you better be ready to get back to them C's and B's." He just
yeah.
was challenging me, right? And those grades never went down. Like I graduated with a 3.6, something like that.
Oh,
So
good, good. Yeah.
I, yeah, I went from Crossroads to getting A's my eighth grade year, and that just carried on throughout. I mean, it just now it's like it's a challenge. Like, hey, I like school now, so it doesn't matter if it's boring or not.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get the grades that I need to get.
From Soldan, you went to Northwestern, right?
Yeah, I went to Northwestern and stayed there for 2 years, and then man, Coach Green, it just I was a quarterback, and back then, black kids didn't go to college to be quarterbacks, and I was like, I'm intelligent, I know how to read defenses, so you're not just gonna move me. So he promised me I could do that when I got there. So freshman
Yeah.
year, played quarterback, started 6 games, had some success. Sophomore year, I guess somebody told him, "Hey man, got to move on. Can't have a black quarterback." And so instead of
What do you
telling
mean
me
by
that,
that? I mean, of
I
all,
know, I know, but it was like instead of just telling me the truth, like, "Hey man, I'm getting pressure from above, and I know I promised you that."
oh
I
my God,
probably would
didn't
have.
he go on? He was the head coach of
He
the
did, yeah, the
Cardinals in
Cardinals
Arizona at one point.
and the Vikings. And so the way he did it, it just like, okay, he gave me some old false story. And then when he moves me to receiver, the guy that he put in my place, I had to call the plays from the receiver spot. I said, okay, I'm gonna finish out the year and I'm a transfer. So I went out to Weber State, played out there for 2 years, but I had to sit out a year. And
Uh-huh.
then had a cup of coffee with the Cardinals. That didn't work out. One of those things where they spent some money on a guy the year before, a bunch of money, and he wasn't that good. And so
Who are we
here
talking about? I'll probably
we're,
remember the person.
we're talking about oh man, what's his name? He ran track with Willie Galt.
Really?
Um, yeah, and that's why they drafted him. I can't think of his name, but he
Oh,
he was
wow.
not he was not a good receiver, but they had gave him like a $300,000 signing bonus in the '80s. That was a lot of money.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was doing really well, and then right before the first preseason game, it was like we can't afford to have this kid, because Kurt Thomas um, went the year before me. Kirk went to the Cardinals, same time this high priced receiver went, and Kirk led the receiver room in every category, right? But
Yeah.
they drafted this guy, so they cut him. And I remember in the paper, like people were mad, like, how can you cut this guy? So same thing happened to me, but they didn't allow me to get in any preseason games. So after that, I went to Canada and then to play receiver, and then after that, I went to Europe. They had a coaching chain, and I got ousted. Went to
Oh,
Europe.
wow.
Yeah, went to Europe and played for a little minute. And at that time, I had a little girl, and I was like, you know what? I got a brain. I can do other things.
I mean, you're probably thinking about retirement.
Yes, I am. We've taken that first step, and me and my wife have taken that first step into retirement. We just bought a house in France, so yeah,
Oh,
we're gonna
house in
retire over
France?
there. Yeah,